Here we are. My name is Chris Liepe. I'm here on the Recording Revolution channel today. You may have noticed that I have been publishing videos on this channel for a little while, some earlier this year, and then more consistently recently. You may also know me from my own YouTube channel, Chris Liepe, where I do lots of vocal coaching. But what you may not know is that many years ago, I got my start in the music industry professionally as a recording engineer, producer, staff writer at Sweetwater Sound. No, not the side that sells you gear, but the actual recording studio. Yeah, I got to work on staff as a recording engineer producer. And it was a job that I got to do right out of college. And it was an incredible opportunity. As a result, I got to work with bands like Jars of Clay, Mercy Me, REO Speedwagon, Sarah Bareilles, many more. Plus, tons and tons of home studio enthusiasts would come to the studio and I would get to finish their mixes. I would get to help them with their own performances, coach them in the studio. Plus, I got access to all sorts of amazing gear. The thing is, though, what I learned from that experience is that, because what I ended up doing is I ended up working there for about 4 years, and then I went to start my own home studio, and I took what I learned from that experience from a gear and mixing and people and networking perspective and did my own thing. And I really can continue to do everything that I did in that $4 million studio that, by the way, when they moved to their new location, I got a chance to help build that huge studio. But I can do everything that I wanted to do for my own recordings, for other people's recordings, right here in my home studio that I could in that $4 million facility. Because I've understood how to leverage less than ideal spaces, but also the way that this world is connected now, it is absolutely amazing. I need great drums on a recording. I know guys to put great drums down on a recording. I work in a collaborative way with people. And yeah, I do a lot of the work myself, but the strength is in collaboration, surrounding yourself, even virtually, with amazing talent, amazing people to speak into your art and your craft. So there's a little bit of background on me. This event is designed and being put on for really 2 reasons. Number one, I just moved into my new home studio space and am in the process of optimizing it. So I thought I'd bring everybody along for the ride. We're going to discuss things that I have done, that I did and am needing to do over again, that I will be doing in this home studio environment, this particular one. Things that I've learned about putting in a home studio, because I've done it twice now. But the first time I had a little bit more help. This time I had to do things largely just up here. I've learned a lot, and I'm excited to share a lot of things with you. And then the other reason that we're doing this event is because I'm going to be spending some time on this channel, and I'd like to learn from you. Where are you guys at? What do you guys need help with? Ask your questions. There's a lot of interaction here, a lot of hellos. I'm going to do my very best to keep up with some of these chats, and I've got help also on here from other guys at the Recording Revolution that are going to be maybe repeating some questions or whatever. This is your time. Ask me anything regarding home studios. And the other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be reviewing some mixes. Mixes from the people that are involved in the Recording Revolution already in the VIP section. And I'm going to be giving some feedback on these mixes based on my experience as a recording engineer, a producer, and someone who's worked with some pretty cool artists and continues to do this. So, here we are. I'm going to spend a little bit of time first showing you around my studio, and I'm going to start keeping an eye on the questions, and I'm going to be answering them as they come in, and then in just a little bit we'll start diving in to some mixes. So I've got this nifty live vocal switching thing going, so I can actually go to different cameras. I can put something on my screen, and what's even really cool, I can take this here phone and use it as a camera, and I can walk you around my studio space. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to put this phone here on my network and give you an exclusive studio walkthrough. What is my view on room correction plugins like SonarWorks? Which one provides the best correction curves? This is something I must address. So I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. That's a great question, Adrian. Let me get this this camera going here, and then I will answer that question because I have a lot to say about it. Okay. So we're going to go here. All right. I am using Sling Studio to switch my cameras around. So let's talk about SonarWorks and monitor room corrections. And I'm going to switch over here, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to give you a panoramic view of my control room first, and then we'll come back, because this is relevant to what's going on here. Here, you can see that those are my lights there. And I'm going to back up here for a minute. Now, a couple things that you may have noticed with what I just did. This room, this control room, is 16 feet this way, so 16 feet long, 13 feet in length, in width. And it's not a complete square, because number one, I've tilted this glass, and I'll talk more about this glass in a little bit. But this glass is actually like this, and then I've used various acoustic treatment, which we'll talk about more later, to get rid of reflections and shape the room slightly differently as well, as you can see. Now, it's not the same as creating different walls, with different angles. All that to say, one of the things you may have noticed is that my desk is not, definitely not in the optimal space for the room. It is a little bit off center, and it is up against the wall. Now, in my old studio space, I had a room, it was 10 feet wide by 14 feet long, and my desk was in the center of the room, and the ceilings were 1.5 feet lower, so a much smaller space. I have a bigger control room here, and because one of the main things I do in this facility is I film, I wanted a longer throw, and I wanted more space in my control room on this side so that I could have musicians next to the desk, right next to me, plus musicians over in the ISO booth. and more room to congregate around my desk. If I had put this desk in the center of my control room and moved it away from the wall, I would lose that ability. It might be a better mixing, like for mixing, it might be better. Well, I know it might be because I actually tried it. It is better. The speakers sound better. There's less problems with that wall right there, and I'm further away from the corner. My bass response is better and more accurate. But I wanted the desk here. And this room was initially a single room, and I put in that wall, and I put it right there because visually and utilitarian-wise, I wanted it there, fully realizing that it was not optimal and wouldn't be optimal for mixing acoustics. It would be optimal for what I wanted to do in the room. And I was talking with Dayon from the Recording Revolution. We were talking about this event. We were talking about my new studio, and he's in the process of doing a studio build himself, which is super cool because we were able to go through lots of different things there. But he mentioned, and this is so true, your room is, you always have to strike a compromise between what you need to get done, what the use cases are, and what is technically optimal. And so these SonarWorks plugins, so one of the first things I did when I got all my stuff set up is I knew I was going to need to optimize my listening position. So I did the sonar thing, and I shot the room and everything, and it works. It works really, really well, but it is software based, and it is something that needs to boot on your computer, and you have to use it as like a plugin in your DAW, but then you can also use it as a sort of OS plugin. And I found that it is quirky, and it needs to update its software, and there's this whole level of like thinking that I need to do. Oh, is my profile set? So I ended up not sticking with it, and I ended up doing something different. Let me show you what I ended up doing, and this has worked really, really well so far. And I talked with my sales engineer at Sweetwater. I did some research. This is something that you would typically do in a more live situation, but it really fits with what I do in this facility because I do live streams, I do videos, I have different speaker monitoring and room treatments and stuff like that in this room than I do in that room, than I do in the outer room, which I'll show you here in just a second. So, and I wanted different listening specifications and speaker management in all those different places. So what I ended up doing, I'm going to go to the mobile cam here again. The drive rack venue. It works. I mean, it has the same sort of RTA. You can plug the RTA mic in. You can shoot your room. You can. Did everybody see that? I think I got that right, or did I go to the wrong? Here, I'm gonna show again. There, the camera should have switched that time. There, I see it now. Okay, so the drive rack venue, it does the same stuff as the SonarWorks stuff. You can plug a mic in. You can shoot your room. You can do custom EQ curves, and you can set different profiles for different monitors, just like the SonarWorks stuff. The thing is, it's not part of it. It doesn't have to be used as a plugin. It doesn't have to. It just runs. It's just a box that just always does its thing, and I can control it from my computer. But I don't have to. It's not like, oh, I need to restart my computer and reload my profiles, and there's not this bug problem that I was having with the SonarWorks. So I do notice a huge difference now that I've optimized my listening space with an RTA mic and created a sound profile. It sounds really, really good. Thank you. Thank you that you like the studio. Okay, you should have seen the mobile shot there. Okay. Yes, the chairs are fabric in the back. They are part of the acoustic treatment as well as very comfortable. I'm going to be looking at these questions here. Get caught up. Thank you so much for hanging out, guys. I'd really love to know how you choose your acoustic treatment placement. What do I do about windows, furniture inside the studio, most important stuff you realize I needed to make it work? Great question. So, full disclosure, what I'm going to do in a few months, I'm actually going to hire a professional acoustic engineer. I'm located in Colorado, and I'm going to hire a professional acoustic engineer to come and measure my room and make recommendations on things that I can do to increase and optimize the sound of my studio. What I did here and what I did in my old studio, well, first of all, when I moved from the old studio to this one, I needed to get going. And so I took the acoustic treatment that I had there. I ordered some more to supplement, the same kind. This is just the RLX standard room treatment that you can get at Sweetwater or Amazon or anywhere else. And I took what I knew about helping other people set up their own studios, which I'd make sure that there are no opposing parallel surfaces that are hard, so they can reflect and cause flutter echo. I made sure that I had diffusers on the back of the wall, some on the ceiling. I made sure that, and we're talking about room treatment. And then I would simply play my instruments, sing, bring the drums in this room, bring the drums in that room, and make notes on what I heard. And then I would add acoustic treatment, again, bass traps. There are certain rules that I follow, bass traps in the corner and the rules that I just talked about. And then it was about supplementing and making things look nice and sound nice. And that took a long time to get right. And it's still not right. This is still in process. It is usable now for me to get my work done, because I make my full-time living out of this space. And so these are these compromises. I would have loved to have someone come in and consult as the place was being built, but with COVID and with all the things that were going on, that really wasn't an option. And so I had to do what I could do to get up and running, and this is going to be a process. And you guys are going to be a part of this process, because after I have that guy in, I'm going to be sharing more about what I learned. You're going to see some transformations in this studio. It's going to be super awesome. But that's how I initially placed the acoustic treatment. I have curtains over the window. I have acoustic insulation in the window that I can take out if I want to actually use the window and get some sunlight. And then you can see the rest of the acoustic treatment, lots of stuff on this wall. And there's the diffusers. It's not a ton of acoustic treatment. There's more in this other room. I'm gonna show you this other room real quick. So you can see in that other room, I have some more diffusers that are going to eventually go up on the ceiling. I just got them, and I have a bunch of acoustic treatment that I have yet to finish hanging. Because this room has there's a few spots where it's still a bit too live, and yes, I know that RLX foam diffusers are not that efficient. It's what I had in the old studio. It will eventually be replaced with homemade, real, trimmed out in the same wood trim. They're going to be awesome. But I had to get going. So you make it work for what you need to do to get your work done. But this room, there's a few spots that are still a bit live. That room, because it's smaller and given the dimensions, and you can see I have some of those movable acoustic baffles that are great for surrounding with vocalists and changing the liveness of that room. And I can do that in this room as well. That's why I have those baffles. So, yes, great questions. I will probably have missed a bunch of stuff here. So keep asking the questions if I don't ask them or answer them. What about mixing with headphones using waves? I can't mix in headphones. Yeah, can't do it. I've tried the Waves stuff. I bought the Waves NX stuff. I haven't tried the Slate one, but I've tried the Waves one. And I can perform and sing and record in headphones all day, but there's something about I need to be able to feel the sound with the monitors. What will I make my new panels with? I'm going to use the same stuff that I shoved in this wall or in these walls when I was doing the construction aspect, and I'm just going to use, it's called soundproofing insulation. It's extra thick in-wall insulation. I'm going to put that behind, or I'm going to build wood frames, and I'm going to wrap those frames in dark gray fabric, and then I'm going to trim those frames in the same color wood trim that I trimmed my window in, and then place those around. And that's how I'm going to build them. Am I using any cloud diffusers hanging from the ceiling? Dan, not yet. I will be. I have, and that's part of the I think what the DBX, what this monitor optimization helped with was the fact that my ceiling is a bit too high, and it's, I think that's going to help a ton. In my brief conversations with the acoustic engineer that's coming in a few months, that's going to be something that he's going to help with for sure. What changes do you make for instruments that use room acoustics for a proper sound? You play harp. That is one of the reasons that I wanted that ISO booth to be dynamically changeable. For vocals, for loud vocals, I need that room to be very absorptive. But I had a mandolin player in there the other day, and I got all of the extra floor standing acoustic treatment out of there, and it sounded much better. Harp, I would get rid of some of the acoustic treatment, but it's a listening exercise. That's why I have those baffles in there. I get everything set up. I listen out of my monitors. I have them play a little bit. I get things going, and then listen. I'm like, you know what? The room could be a little bit more live. So what do? I take a rug out, and I take some of the freestanding acoustic stuff out, and then make those changes. And it works really, really well. I really wanted that room to be dynamically acoustically adjustable. So, and then the bigger room, I have a big rec room. It's just my basement rec room. And that is what I use to record drums with, because I want the huge space out there. So that one, I use acoustic baffling out there, but it's 100% portable. So I can move and put those around the drums, but then take advantage of the bigger reverberation in the room as well. So Jonathan, do I ever record drums in my space? I'll show you what I do for drums. I do record drums in that small room, and then I leave the door open and I put room mics out in the rec room. But I've also recorded drums, just had the drums in the big room. And I think, depending on the drummer, I actually like the sound of it in the bigger room better. And I'll show you that here in a second. What's the best computer to buy for music production? You know what? Just get a modern computer. It doesn't matter. I prefer to use Macs because the ecosystem is tighter, but lots of people have great luck on Windows PCs as well. Chromebooks don't work. What monitors am I using? I'm using the Kali LP6s, Generation 1, and I've also got in that room, I've got the IN8s. I've got the bigger ones. And Kali was awesome. They actually sent these to me to try because I was using M Audio something or other monitors before, and they broke. I had them for a decade. They were awesome, and these I like the Kalis better. Any tips for room treatment if I live near a construction site? So room treatment is very different than soundproofing. This stuff is not soundproofing. Construction, insulation in walls, decoupled walls, dropped ceilings, things that have to do with how you build your studio is what soundproofs. I did not drop the ceiling because I wanted the ceiling height, especially in, for the live rooms. I wanted them to be a little bit more live. I did. The back wall is a new wall, and the video that I released on the Recording Revolution last week shows you some construction pictures of building out this room. That wall's new. This wall we put extra insulation in. We blew insulation into the ceiling. This wall is a 6-inch wall with extra insulation, with that framed-in window and so I did my best to soundproof there. But you can build a room within a room to soundproof, and that's it. The rest of the room treatment is for how things sound in the room, and it helps very little for actually keeping sound in the room or keeping other sound out. What are the best budget-friendly studio monitors? By far, the Kali Audios. In this room, I tried some Tenoys. I tried some KRKs. I tried, what else did I try? M Audio. And for the money, I can't believe how good these Kali Audios sound. My opinion, best monitor placement for mixdown. The thing I'll say about monitor placement for mixdown, number one, what I said at the very beginning of this session, it depends on your use cases for the room, your other use cases for the room. I mean, if you have the ability to set up for mixdown and then change it for tracking or whatever, that's great. Not everybody does. If you're in mixdown, you want to be not quite in the center of the room, towards the front of the room, but in the center of the room. From a width perspective, and then towards the front of the room, but not up against the wall on your desk and for your monitors. And then you want to build a triangle from the mix position to your monitors. And I do have that going on here in this room. So, Ronald, you can't soundproof from the outside by construction, but you can build a dedicated room within room. And they make these things that they're used for drum isolation, but you can use those, put those in a bedroom, and then you've created a room within room, and that's going to block out the sound. That's the only thing that blocks out sound. Hanging things on your wall will not block out sound. Keith, do I have any courses for mixing vocals? I am very interested. I'm only interested in vocals. Yes. I have a course that I did with the Recording Revolution called Perfect Vocal Takes. And I've worked with various rock stars in vocal production as well. Spencer Sotelo from Periphery, Johnny Craig, and Lucas Magyar from Veil of Maya. I have courses that they cover lots of different vocal production in different genres. Check out Perfect Vocal Takes on the Recording Revolution. Getting some water. Thank you for all the wonderful questions. Doing my best to keep up. How important is the stereo triangle position? It's pretty important. But one thing I'll say is that as long as you're used to the way your monitors sound and you know what to compensate for when you're listening, which is going to happen whether you're in a $4 million studio or whether you're in a studio like this or whether you're in, mixing on a laptop and headphones, whatever it is, as long as you know what to listen for, you can make great mixes on anything. I can't mix in headphones. That doesn't mean that other people can't. But I remember when I would mix at Sweetwater in the $4 million facility, I still had to take mixes out to my car. I still had to make notes of how that optimized room on those, $4,000 Genelec speakers sounded. I still had to make notes. I don't think I mixed any better in that studio on really expensive monitors than I mix here. In fact, I think I mix better here because I know what's wrong with the room and what I did to help optimize it, and I know what I need to do to compensate. They say you should never compensate, but you know what? That's not realistic. We have to compensate. We don't all have billions of dollars or millions of dollars. And the best recordings that you and I love, even from professionally recorded and mixed stuff, there's tons of compromises there. They were all done on less than ideal platforms and situations. I went to Blackbird Studios in Nashville a couple months ago to work with a vocalist, Mark Martel, amazing vocalist. We're doing a course together here soon. And I got in there and we were setting stuff up, and me and the co-producer on the course, you may know him, Warren Hewart, we were there, we were walking around the Studio D that we were in, and we were looking around and we're like, they have the desk in the wrong place of the room. Yep. Oh, they have this massive couch cushion thing in the vocal booth to deaden things. They actually have the speakers facing way too big of speakers for the size of the room. There were all sorts of things wrong in this professional studio, but you know what? Great music and a great course was made there. It's not about having the best or the most optimized. It's about a process and knowing your space and being able to work and do real work in your space. Yeah, there's a certain amount that you have to do in order to make it usable, and I believe I've done that in this space. But don't let it be a rabbit trail. You don't have to have the most optimal space to get done what you need to get done. You have to have a workable space. Do I ever use a sub monitor? A sub? Yes, I do have a sub. I have a Yamaha sub that I can go in and out. I can turn it on and off for mixing. We're going to have to do another one of these. This is awesome. So many amazing questions. I will say this, and I'll say it over and over again here from this point out. Be sure there's a link in this video description, and on all the videos I do, I have a free recording course. If your question didn't get answered and you want to go deeper with me from the recording side, not just vocals, click the link below and join my free recording course. There I show you how to set up your home studio. And I give you tips on recording and tracking and mixing vocals and guitar and drum loops and bass and keys and all sorts of stuff. Portable sound treatment. Portable sound treatment is awesome. It's awesome. because you can dynamically adjust your room for what you are recording. And you know what? They do that in the pro studios too. I was just out at Blackbird and they had couch cushions in the ISO booth. And I was down at a studio in Denver, I guess it's been a year, and they had these big freestanding round dense gobos that they moved around. And they had a drum set in a small room and they had these gobos all around it. And that's what you need. And then when you're recording a cello or whatever, you take those out and you let it breathe a little bit better. Thank you for posting that link. Keep posting it. Any acoustic considerations for miking a guitar amp? Great idea. So one of the things that I am really excited about this room, I'll show you here. What I just showed you were my snake boxes. I have cabling, XLR and MIDI cabling running through the wall and into the other room. And so I can put a guitar amp over in that other room, dial it in, and then I can have my guitar over here. I can even have the guitarist in this room next to me, and we have some sound isolation, so we can hear how the guitar amp sounds through the speaker monitors without having it blaring in our face. That's what I do when I record. And I had a similar setup, but it wasn't quite as cool in my old studio. And it's super awesome. If you don't have to have an ISO booth to do this, though. You just run a snake out of your bedroom into a different place in the house that's in a different room and get it out of the main living area or the main recording area, mic it up. I have lots of great mics. Mojave MA300 is the one I'm talking through now. Shure SM7B. I've got a couple of Rode mics, a couple of Neumann mics. But for guitar, I prefer a regular old SM57. On axis, slightly off center of the cone. And I prefer to mic a closed back 112. I have a Vox AC15. And a PV Classic 30. Those are great sounding amps, and I love miking those. Do I ever record using modelers or plugins for guitars or bass? All the time, Dan. I use Bias effects. I use the Avid 11 rack. I use Waves GTR a ton. Waves GTR is cheap and it sounds awesome. And as a guitar player, and I tell the people this all the time, tone is in the fingers. Tone is not in, it is partially in what you use for your sounds and stuff. But I have made more great recordings, and I've had people make more great recordings with Waves GTR that I got for $35 on sale than any amp that I've used. It's just fantastic sounding. Can you make a less ideal room better using a noise gate? No. Noise gate, don't use a gate for that. In fact, I don't like gates at all. I gate toms a little bit when I'm miking drums, but do I have issues with guitars in the ISO booth, or do I take them out? Yes, Will. Great question. The guitar's hanging on the walls back there. If I'm doing vocals, and if I'm doing loud vocals in that room, I will take the guitars off the walls. Because when you really get loud, you end up hearing the ring of the strings in the mic. So absolutely. I've used Amplitube. Amplitube's great. The thing with, and this is where I am going to differ from, and it's probably not very popular with gear manufacturers, but I'm going to differ from a lot of recording enthusiasts and career musicians. I don't discriminate on gear at all. I mean, what's the best amp modeling software? I don't know. They all sound great, and I've used all of them. I've downloaded free trials. I've done projects with them. They all sound great. I want to be able to get my guitar, dial in a sound, go. What's the best studio monitors? I mean, yeah, the Callies are the best for the value, I think, from the ones I've used. But I have used all gear. Remember, I spent multiple years as a staff engineer at Sweetwater Studios. I could use any mic that I wanted. Any mic. I could use any studio monitors. I could use any instrument. Anything. And what I came to know is that it just didn't matter. What mattered, because all gear is pretty much so good these days, what really mattered was having the inspiration in my mind and just freaking choosing something and getting to work, recording. Working at a professional studio completely cured me of gear acquisition syndrome. Completely 100% cured me. And, there's the gear acquisition, plug-in acquisition syndrome, PASS. That's another one. I mean, I subscribe to the monthly Mic DSP stuff. I love Mic DSP stuff. I have the Sound Toys bundle, and I have the Antares vocal bundle. I love the Warm and all the auto-tune stuff's in there. That's it. So, and it's not to say that I don't like gear but I like doing projects and making music more. And I almost feel like I don't have time to explore and be the, consummate gear reviewer or gear enthusiast. It's really way more about the projects and what I need to do to earn a living. And I will purchase the minimal amount of things necessary and do the minimal amount of things necessary from a gear and studio setup scenario to actually just get my work done and be creative. And what's really neat, I got to work with Periphery's Spencer Sotelo last spring. And he said, I'm coming out there. We're doing this course. We're going to produce some songs. Great. And I'm getting ready to work with some amazing. In fact, I have an amazing phone call. I can't tell you who it is, but he's an awesome producer who's worked with some of the bands that you and I love. He may be coming out here to work with me. And we're going to be producing some stuff, some album stuff for another artist. This could be amazing. And you know what? My studio is not ideal. It doesn't have all the gear that he's going to need. I didn't have all the plugins and all the gear that Spencer needed. But you know what? He did. So he brought a rack of gear, and we put it in, and we used it in my space, and it worked fine. In my podunk little spare bedroom basement recording studio. It's not about the gear. It's about getting something that's good enough, making those relationships, and being all about the music. Best bang for your buck, microphone and channel strip. Guys, I know it's expensive. It's this one. Here's my vocal rack. It's the Manly Core reference channel strip. It has a limiter. It has a compressor. It has an EQ. It's tube. It is amazing. It's about $2,000, but if you're going to invest in anything and you do vocals, do that. You only need one. I have multiple because I do more vocal stuff. Angling monitors at ear level. Yeah, my monitors are angled down just a little bit like this so that my tweeters are aiming at my ears when I'm in my mix position. That's important. The high imaging is great. Chris, didn't you do some guitar lessons on Jamplay too? Yeah, I have thousands of lessons on jamplay.com for guitar. Been around. I may have missed it, but are those mono speakers? No, they're not mono. I use stereo speakers, the Recording Revolution or Kali audio monitors. Do I need a better preamp for my microphones? No, you don't need a better preamp. You can use whatever preamp came with your interface, as long as you learn how to use your plugins. And in Perfect Vocal Takes, and in my free recording course that is linked to at the top here, recordingrevolution.com, I offer a free recording course. I go through how to use plugins to optimize your signal chain, with just plugins and basic preamps. It would be great if you can show us a typical routing for some vocals or guitar step by step. I do in my free recording course. I would love to show you that right now, but I have so many questions coming in, and I want to get a chance to review some of these mixes that were sent over. So I'm not going to take as much time to do that, but it is in my free recording course. What's a good all-around mic? The Shure SM7B is fantastic for vocals. It's the same capsule as an SM57. It's a dynamic mic. You don't have to worry about your room optimization as much. Great mic. These are awesome too. Is my floor made of wood or carpet? My floor is made of birch wood, and I have rugs all over it. And that's another one of those dynamic acoustic treatment things. I can place rugs or remove rugs to make my rooms more live or less live. If I just had carpet, I'm stuck. But I do have a lot of rugs. Which is best to record vocals in? A small closet with full absorption, bedroom with carpet but echoey from lack of wall treatment, or 3, a bedroom but purchase sound panels or foam acoustic treatment? Number 3. It is best to record vocals in a moderate-sized room. That room over there can sound great with the acoustic treatment. That room is 10 feet by 13 feet. This room is 16 feet by 13 feet. Both rooms, properly treated, sound great. Small closets with fully treated stuff. Watch what happens with my hands when I do this mic. Test, 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 test. That's an exaggeration of what happens, but soundproof or sound acoustic treatment doesn't flatly reduce or optimize the sound coming out of your face for vocals. So it's best to have a little bit of space around you in order to let your voice breathe a little bit. So choose a bigger, by bigger I mean, 10 by 12, 10 by 13 is big enough, and acoustically treat it well. Don't use these. Those things, I know that they're out there and some people use them, but those things that, so let's isolate our vocals or whatever, and then you put this little thing around those don't work. They don't sound good. They might sound good if you're a quiet vocalist, but as soon, like me, as soon as you start getting loud and aggressive and expressive with your voice, these things, they don't trap out a poorly treated acoustic room, and they do cause certain frequencies to slap back at the mic. Your mic doesn't reject very well. So, okay. You can hear lots of things I've recorded. Go out to Spotify, search my name, Chris Liepe. You can go to my YouTube channel, and you can see any cover songs that I've done. You can go to SoundCloud, search my name on SoundCloud, and I've done various projects there. And then there's also all sorts of things. I really should have like a PDF or something, but there's an acoustic EP by Jars of Clay. There's an acoustic EP by Mercy Me that I've done that you can search and listen to on Spotify or whatever. There's pepperings of stuff that I've done all over the place that I have worked on. On room correction, what are my thoughts on room correction? Ray, I talked about that at the beginning of this, at length, at the beginning of this this session. So go back after this is done and watch that. You'll get a much better explanation. What room do I use on concrete floors? Rugs. Drywall, I use just RLX. Let's see. Ever thought of switching to the M1 Max? I have an M1 Mac that I have not switched to yet because not everything's compatible. I will eventually switch to an M1 Mac. Trumpet in a small bedroom. Yeah. Hang up quilts and egg cartons and the bed and put your laundry. Like get one of those hanger things. Open your closet so that your clothes is showing. Make it pretty dead in the high mid area. And then add other acoustic treatment to taste. I recorded some trumpets in my first basement in the house that I grew up in with my parents, and it was concrete walls and everything. And that's what I did. I brought around clothes that were hung up, and I surrounded my trumpet player with clothes. It was awesome. At what point do I need a patch bay? That's a great question, Scott. I use a patch bay in this studio. You can see here. There it is. And I'm actually using it. It's not just blank. I use the patch bay because it allows me to work with that room over there differently than this room. If I want to sing through Manly 1 in this room, or I want someone else to be able to sing through Manly 1 in that room, I can do that with the patch bay. Or if I have my drummer out there and I want him to be able to use all these preamps, but then I want to switch them back over to use in this room, it helps me to utilize the multiple room thing. They're really useful if you have multiple rooms or want to have multiple spaces. They're also useful if you just want to have, like, for me, to have this mic right here and use it through different preamps. It's super easy. I don't have to crawl behind or anything. I can just patch it in. Yeah, Jordan, that will apply for saxophone as well. Can I record in a small 8x8 space? Absolutely. My old ISO booth in my old studio was 6x7. And it worked great. You just had to, dense it down with foam and towels. I used towels. I used couch cushions. The lower price point preamps, I prefer just to use the stock preamps on my interface and then use plugins. I've used the Focusrite ISA stuff. I've used, I have the Avalon 737. I don't actually like the Avalon that much now that I've used the Manleys. But the preamps in the Focusrite interfaces sound really great. They're really great and clean. The Octapre stuff, I have an 8-channel Octapre that I use for drum tracking. Sounds great. When will Perfect Guitar Takes course be available again? Pretty soon. The Perfect Vocal Takes and Perfect Guitar Takes will both be available within the next couple months, as well as some other wonderful recording things. For now, join my free recording course, and you'll be kept apprised of when other recording goodnesses are coming from my direction. Let's see here. What is one piece of studio gear that you swear by for any musician or engineer? Daniel with a 4 asks. All right. I'm going to answer this question in the only way that I know how to. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I am not a gear nut. I think a lot of people would say, and I think I agree with this, like, find yourself a good mic that you're comfortable with. Yes, that's good. Have a computer, have a modern computer. Have a set of speakers that you know and like. But here is the number one tool that you need to have at your disposal for your studio. Listen to music. Listen critically to music. dive in, become the most consummate professional fan of all the music that you love, and listen to it on in so many different ways: earbuds, headphones, speakers, live, cars, good cars, bad cars. Your ears are and that sounds a little, I'm not trying not to placate. I'm just trying to emphasize that, like I said, I've been through so much gear. I could ooze gear. And it just, which mic should I use for my vocals? Any mic at all. Just sing really, really well and you deliver a really nice performance. It's not quite that bad or quite that literal. But, I heard a story the other day. A good friend, Warren Hewitt, from Produce Like a Pro, we were talking, and he was mentioning that he talked with another guy that we all know. His name's Joe Gilder, runs Home Studio Corner. And we were talking about, so this is, me, Joe Gilder, Warren Hewitt. We're all kind of, anyway. Warren brought up that there was this mic used in some Beatles recordings that everybody went out and like, oh, this is the best mic we ever used for vocal recording because the Beatles used it. And then they actually talked to the engineers on the Beatles session, and they went, I don't know, it's just the mic that they had set up. They didn't choose the mic. The mic was just there. And I just can't emphasize that enough. And what I teach in my recording, in my free recording course, in my voice courses, in my guitar lessons, and in my perfect vocal takes and perfect guitar takes, I de-emphasize the need to have the ideal gear or the best gear or a certain type of gear, and I massively emphasize getting great performances, using what you have from a creative standpoint, not from an acquisition standpoint, to create great music. That's the way I roll. I do not use a DAW control surface. I do have a slate microphone for vocals. I have used it. It is awesome. Let's see here. Ear training for mixing. Yeah, I've actually done an ear training course that will be launching here in a month and a half. And it includes stuff for mixing and playing and singing. And there's some ear training tips in my free recording course as well. Bugera amps are awesome. Bugera, yep. Any tips for recording flute? Great question. I recorded lots of flutes and lots of woodwinds. Condenser mics, small diaphragm condensers work great. Flutes, believe it or not, sound better in a bigger room with less acoustic treatment. So when I record flutes and woodwinds in general, I tend to use my larger rec area. Let me show you the rec area so I don't have to keep doing this and you actually know what's going on. I'm going to walk you out there, and then you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. It is, the total dimensions of the space are 40 feet by 35 feet. So here we go. We're going to go on a little walk, and then I'll come back. All right. There you have it. So there is the full picture of the space that I have for the studio. What does my vocal chain look like for live tracking? I cover that in my free recording course. And I also talk about it on other videos on this channel. But for live tracking, I'll still give you a start to the answer. I go into this mic. I sit here at this chair and sing sitting down. So yes, it's totally okay to sit down. And then I go into my Manly Core, into my recording interface, and then I have on an insert in Pro Tools, I have a little bit of reverb and a little bit of delay. That's it. For acoustic guitar recording, again, guys, join my free recording course because a lot of this I can go into a lot more detail there, and I do. But for acoustic guitar recording, I'll be sitting right here, and I'll take this mic and I'll put it down here next to the sound hole, and then I'll take a small diaphragm condenser and I'll put it over here facing downward like this, and I'll record this part of the neck. And then I'll usually pan those out this way. That's if I'm doing very acoustically driven music and I want that spread and I'm not doubling my acoustic guitar. For if I'm layering a bunch of acoustic stuff and it's in the context of other instruments and I want to double track it a lot, I just use a single mic at the sound hole that's pointed towards the back of the guitar and it's positioned right around the 12th fret. How low is low volume for better mixing? That's a great question because volume and ear fatigue is real when it comes to and there's a video coming out, I believe this Friday, where I talk about ear fatigue and mixing and a really neat trick to make sure that you're not going into a mix session with ear fatigue. And that video is coming out here soon on the Recording Revolution channel. I tend to mix very, very low. Just enough so I can feel the volume. But it's a feel-based thing. What I always say is that if I can't talk over my speaker volume to someone else in the room without feeling like I'm shouting, it is too loud. So I want to be able to talk at a normal level with someone else in the room while I'm mixing. That's how I generally work. I went to college. I majored in music industry studies. So it's kind of like a music business degree with an emphasis in vocals. And I did vocal performance some there. And I did a lot of technology, a lot of recording classes, stuff like that at University of Colorado, Denver. What recording interface do I use? I use the now discontinued Apogee Ensemble Thunderbolt. In the past, I've had lots of different interfaces. I have a Focusrite, the real basic one that I use mobile, just 2-channel. It's really good. I've used Avid interfaces in the past. I've used I started on the Digi 001. I've had the 002. I've used Behringer interfaces. I've used PreSonus interfaces. All of them have worked really, really well. I've not used East-West stuff. I've not used Isovox. I don't use UAD plugins either. Great questions, guys. I'm going to look here at a few more questions, and I'm going to start listening to some mixes. Yeah, that's a good comment about some mics highlight certain people or certain things. I find that these Mojave mics really highlight the qualities of my voice, that lower mid. They have a very rich low mid sound to them. I really, really like them. And I think that is microphones for me any vocal mic will work. And I've made great recordings on SM57s. I've made great recordings on SM58s. And it's way more about the performance, way more. In fact, I've done videos on the Recording Revolution channel about that. I compared and dialed in the sound of a 57 and compared it to this Mojave, and it sounds great. It's more about what you're used to and what you can be comfortable performing with. But yeah, different mics have a lot of different flavors, and all gear. I mean, different guitars, different. That's why there's so many. It's fun. It's fun to get into all these different. These different flavors of gear and guitar. And I've got a lot of guitars too. And I've got them because they all offer something slightly different tonally and stuff like that. I think there's a big difference between using different things because you have different tools at your disposal, as opposed to just trying to find the best. It's not about the best. It's about enjoying the creativity process. Average price for audio, average price audio interface I would recommend. It really depends on what you want to do. The gear that you need to record drum sets versus what you need to just record vocals. I mean, if you just need to record one or two instruments at a time, you can do a $200, $150 interface. But if you want to do more stuff, I mean, and I think that's where the Focusrite stuff. That stuff's not very expensive. I mean, for $300 or $400, Motu makes some really good lower price stuff. They work great. And you can do up to, 8 channels, 16 channels even in some cases. Great questions, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I love Kali monitors. They are Kali monitors. All right. Do you provide a course for improving vocals, singing ability, or does your Vocal Takes course also cover that? No, I have a whole suite of courses that you can find at my website, chrisliepe.com, that focus specifically on singing. Perfect Vocal Takes does cover some of that, but that's more about vocal recording. There you go. What advice? Okay, this is the last question I'm going to take. And then I'm going to start listening to some of these mixes and offering some feedback here. What advice can you give for someone wanting to start a music channel on YouTube? This is because I recently did this. My YouTube channel is only about 2.5 years old. And I went from no subscribers to almost 200,000 subscribers in about 2 years. And I went from 0 to 100,000 subscribers in only 8 months, which is pretty cool. I do mix tests in my car, absolutely. To start a music channel, the best thing that you can do, here's what I did. Post often and post about what you're passionate about. Me, I started out being passionate about showing people how to sing and how to record. And in that context, I'm also very passionate about the kind of music that I like and discovering new music that I like. So when I react to vocalists, when I teach people how to sing, when I listen to new music and offer commentary on isolated vocals or isolated guitars or this mix or that mix, I'm coming at it from a super fan sort of mentality. I love listening to music and I love talking about music. I love trying to figure out how what this person did in their mix I can do in some way in a project that I'm working on, or I can do with my own voice or my own guitar playing. I absolutely love that. And so I would say this: post frequently and just be excited and bring people into that excitement. And And you're going to develop an audience that way, because you're going to develop an audience of like-minded people who are going to come and want to be a part of what you're doing, because you're excited and because they want community. They want a friend. And that's what I've enjoyed most about being a personality on YouTube. I've met a lot of amazing people and had some amazing conversations. Even these are amazing conversations we're having. That's what I would say. Okay, let's listen to some songs. All right. Listen point. So we're listening to little passages of these songs. This first one is from Mary Angelo, and we're supposed to start listening at 50 seconds. Very, very cool, Mary. I'm going to approach this with the following things to say. Giving feedback on mixes, I'm always very sensitive about this, because some of the things that when you have listening feedback and you do mixes and stuff, it's like, well, you should have used a different snare, or you should do it. Like, you can't really go back and change some of the things about the mix, because it has to do with what you tracked with. And so some of the things that I say, I fully understand, and I want to be sensitive to the fact that, like, yeah, if there's something about the snare that I think should sound different, like, I know that you can't really change that. So a lot of the things that I say, like, maybe in future times, in future projects, keep this in mind, and you might experiment with things that are going to give you a slightly different result. But also understand that this is just me listening to the music. And like I said before, I love music. I love mixes. I love sounds. I love sonic qualities. And this is really, really good. And I appreciate a lot about this. I like the space that you've created with what sounds like fairly small rooms. The panning, the way the vocals were placed, the subtle placement of the background vocals, they really, really good. I heard different EQ things going on with the vocals. The way that the guitars were placed, they were out of the way. There was a lot of room in the mix, even though it didn't sound like necessarily that you had recorded in a very large space. I would say, from a couple critique standpoints, I would say that in my drum recordings, I mic up, I do spot mics, but I use a lot more room sound, even in smaller areas, to get a bit more beef out of the drums, because you can tell those close mics, it's very easy to get phasing issues with when you use too much close miking, if you're not careful, and even if you are really careful. So using the spot mics with drums very sparingly, just enough to get a little definition, but let the majority of your tone come from your room mics. If you don't have a big room, then do what I do and put the drums in the small room, and then find another space that's next to that room and put those mics out in a different room and use those to beef up the sound. Hang your overheads as high as possible. So it's better to have ambiguous imaging than phasey close mic stuff, even close mic overheads. The vocals, I don't know, sounded like they were recorded with a dynamic mic. Sounded great. You worked the mic well. The compression settings sounded good. The presence of the lead vocal was right where it needed to be. The low end, although I am listening on headphones for the purposes of being able to interact with this mic and talk to you guys, the low end sounded tight. It didn't sound like you had extraneous things going on that were competing with the rest of your mix. The overall mastering job felt pretty good, especially for the style of music. Very, very well done. I also appreciated the performance aspect of it. You had this, from a vocal perspective, very relaxed vibe that still communicated a bit of attitude. That's hard to do. You didn't sound tense. I don't know if you were the vocalist on this or not, but you didn't sound tense or like you were trying too hard at all. There was a very natural, genuine, authentic performance that I got and that you captured in this recording. That is better than any, boost 6K at this, and it's better than any of that. A lot of that is subjective. The overall flavor of the mix sounded great too. If you're tuning in, Mary, do you have any questions? All right. The mic I'm using is the Mojave MA300. When do I need a mobile interface? I use mobile interfaces when I work remotely, mostly for editing, video editing, audio editing, stuff like that. Led Zeppelin recorded drums in a 3-story stairwell and got a great big sound. Yep, stairwell. It's so much better than if you have access to a big room for drums. So much better. Okay, let's go to mix number 2. This is Todd and Karen. Listen point is 33 seconds. Wonderful vocal layering. Oh man, this is great. We'll have to do more of these listening critiques. This is great. Really, really enjoying hearing some of this stuff. Wow. Okay. This is. I'm glad that I listened to this one. After the other one. This is cool. I'm going to start with the vocals. Excellent placement. That wall of sound vocals and the way that it melded with your choice of synth. That stringy sounding synth. Really, really good job. You heard the definition, but you also got this consistent width, the effects, the EQ, really, really well. There's this, man, it has this classic rock sort of vibe. Love it. In terms of the drum sound, well, the bass sound, loved the bass movement, the interaction that the bass had with the kick, fantastic. In terms of the drum sound, in contrast with the last one that we listened to, I could have used more close mic and more presence out of the snare. You had a great groove going on, but the snare was in the back enough that when everything was firing on all cylinders in that mix, I lost the backbeat just a little. Giving me a little bit more close micing for that snare, having the snare crack a little bit more in terms of presence in the mix, bring it forward in the mix. That could mean using more spot mics, but I don't know how you actually recorded the drums. That could mean bringing up the close mics. It could mean bringing down the overheads a little bit, although the toms sounded very present and very, very well placed. It was just the snare. The kick was the same way. So I think it's just a matter of bringing up that spot mic in the snare. Yeah, it sounded really, really great. Again, the parts, man, well performed stuff. We should do another one of these events and just do listening. Fun. Also, if you happen to be here, Todd and or Karen, give me a shout out. Is the Apogee Duet 2 any good? Yeah, that's a great box. How do you get a mixed critique? What we did this time is we sent out an email to those people who are enrolled in VIP through the Recording Revolution, and they submitted for a raffle, and 3 mixes were chose at random. All right. Okay, let's do another one. And in the future, what we did this time is we were going to listen to 40 seconds of a mix. I could see doing a smaller event that is just listening feedback with a couple of these, where we listen to the whole thing and we go through the whole track, and we talk about, and maybe we could even do the multi-tracks. I mean, there's going to be some really, really neat stuff. Dangerous Devil Official. We'll get more, if you're subscribed to the Recording Revolution list, we'll get more information about future events like this, and we'll do some more specific requirements or parameters so that we can really harness the cool aspects of an event like that and listen to some really neat stuff, I'm sure. Okay, let's do this last one here. Listen point is 2 minutes 50 seconds.
When we lay in the tall grass under pillowy clouds, but heartache is the only thing holding me now.
Love it.
As I walk up to the house, feeling sad, alone and blue. My tears just keep falling as day fades tonight. But I'll always be grateful.
Oh, yeah.
For our beautiful life.
Just going to listen through to the end. Oh, got some Alison Krauss vibes sort of going on there. Fantastic job with the vocal interaction between the male and the female vocal. Fantastic. The sheen. I love when you get a good vocal recording that you've got that really good combination of it's present and in your face and up front and takes up a large spot in the mix, but there's also a nice space around it. In other words, it sounds like it's both close and far away at the same time. Those are the best kind of vocal arrangements and vocal placement in the mix. And you nailed that. And the slight off-panning of the female vocalist helped accentuate the space of the male vocalist. The female vocalist was a little bit wetter, and you could tell the reverb was a little bit, there was less brightness on the reverb, so it helped bring her back. Also, the EQ was less present on her vocal, and there was more presence on the lead vocal. The piano was well placed. It sounded like it was a VI, but man, you could still get, the samples are so good these days, you could still get the weight of that VI out of that piano well. Drums were good. They were a good combination of dry and punchy with some space around them. What's really nice about mixes like this, and really all the mixes have done a good job of this, but this one especially, there's not too much going on. So the arrangement really, I bet this song was not hard to mix at all, because the ways that things popped in and out, you hear the piano kind of come in a little bit. The vocals are perfectly phrased with the other, the drum fills and the other little things coming in and out. There's not a ton of instruments. The arranging makes a phenomenal mix. And I talk about this in my free recording course. I also talk about this in Perfect Vocal Takes and in Perfect Guitar Takes. We shouldn't have to do a ton to our mix. If we're in charge of the tracking and the recording and the writing and arranging process, mixing becomes kind of an afterthought. And I'm not the only one who says this. I've worked with a lot of artists where I hardly have to do any mixing. And certainly on my stuff, I hardly have to do any mixing, because I mix and arrange and do the right takes and experiment with different tones as I go. And I can tell that the people who recorded this did that. Great job. Great job. For sonic track, I don't know what your tracking stuff was like. It'd be fun to do this and actually have the people here to talk about the recording process a little bit, so I could get feedback and a little bit of backstory on how they did what they did, because that would help me offer even better feedback. But I don't know that I have any, I'll try this next time for your next song, because I feel like for the genre, it really, really worked well. Great job. Okay. Well, guys, we are coming towards the end of this first event. I say first because there will be more. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I sure did. This is kind of the introduction to the channel for me, as I'm going to be spending more time here. And I was glad to get some questions from you guys. Reference tracks. I use reference tracks constantly. I listen to reference tracks all day, even when I'm not mixing. But what I have a playlist in Spotify that I use for my reference tracks, and that I used to help tune my room with my DBX thing that I talked about at the very beginning of this session. And I use a lot of, the main thing is you want to use things that you're familiar with, that you've been listening to for years, that you know sound great on lots of different setups. Great, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. We will see you at another event soon. Stay tuned for regular videos coming from this studio on the Recording Revolution channel, as well as, of course, my other channel, Chris Liepe, on YouTube. I hope to continue to interact with you guys on a deeper level, and we'll get creative here, and there are more cool ways for us to interact as we move forward on this channel.